of them, music and saluting, and it's a guy with a gun in the room telling you what to do or be caged. And that is the raw reality of political power, and politicians understand this very well. Mao Zedong said, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Even our good friend Obama, state is that agency with the monopoly on violence. There's no doubt about it. In the political class, it's just the ruled who get confused and who attack each other. I mean, okay, hands up how many people have been arrested for their beliefs? Here. All right. More balls than I do, including me. How many people have experienced or received ostracism, social condemnation, criticism, eye-rolling, rejection from peers, friends, and family for your beliefs? Come on, be honest. Do you see? It is a horizontal slavery that the ruling classes profit from. And I said this at Libertopia last year, so I'll just touch on it very briefly, but the state commits the crime, but it requires a getaway driver, and the getaway driver is the person who praises the state, who covers up the crime that is not a crime. And I think it's incumbent upon us to point out to the getaway driver that even though he's not holding the gun can only be pointed because of his involvement. His moral and ideological approval of the state is the only reason the state gets the gun and gets to use the gun. And so my approach has been that there's a very easy way to win these kinds of debates. And I mean win, like win-win, hopefully, which is to simply ask the person, do you support the use of violence against me? Right? We de-abstract the bullet. We talcum the gun. That's like the worst anarchist slogan in the history of anarchism. Talcum the gun. What? What are you talking about? But when somebody supports, right, they say, I support the war in Iraq. Okay? Send them a check. Go sign up. But I don't support the war in Iraq. Am I allowed to disagree with you without you wanting me thrown in jail? Because that's all anarchy is the right to disagree without violence. That's all it is. Somebody says, I think the government should help the poor. Fantastic. I think it's terribly destructive. Am I allowed in your world to disagree with you? Am I allowed to have my sovereign conscience and individual will free of the violence that you advocate? That is a personal statement. There's a story that was at Ernie Hancock's conference last December. I'll shamelessly rip it off. It's a good story. A guy had some friends who were in World War II. They were older guys. And one of them would get together with his buddies, and they'd drink, and they'd have war stories, and they'd have great fun. They'd sing old songs and so on, and have a great time. The other guy never talked about it. Never went to any meetups. Didn't Facebook friends his old war buddies. Never talked about it. It was a silent Mr. Brave. And the guy said, oh, you know why? And the guy who was buddies with all his war buddies said, well, it's real easy. Simple. Because I was in the Air Force. I was in the bomber. I was in the bomb squad. So for me, you know, I'm flying over Germany or wherever the hell they were, and I'm pushing a button and bombs are going down, and all I see around me in the airplane, little puffs of smoke from the anti-aircraft guns. All I see is little puffs of smoke. That's all I see. That's the war to me. Bombs disappear into a cloud, a couple of little flashes, puffs of smoke, I go home. It's a little scary, but it's not gory. Whereas this other guy, he was in the infantry, right? So he was down there in the mud. He was face to face with people. He bayoneted people, right? He knows the feeling of bone on metal. And that's a whole different planet. And oftentimes we talk about the state like it's little puffs of smoke. And people who want the state to do stuff, all they see are these little puffs of smoke. think it'd be great to get rid of drugs. Let's start with school kids, shall we? And so it's easy when you talk about the state doing stuff to imagine that, you know, just stuff's going to happen out there, over there. But when people ask the state to do stuff, they're very clearly saying that you must be thrown in jail if you disagree with me, and if you resist those who want to throw you in jail, you will be gunned down like a rabid dog. That is the bald reality, the naked gun of state power. And people want to use it against you, and that is a very personal thing. It's one thing to say, there ought to be a law, right? It's quite another thing to sit across a table from someone and say, if you disagree with me, I want you shot. That is an uncomfortable, remember I started saying, let's be more uncomfortable. For those who remember through the alcohol-soaked haze to the beginning of Libertopia, I said that this is an uncomfortable thing that we need to do to people. That if they want the state to do something, that they need to look people in the eye and say, if you disagree with me about this, I want you caged or shot. Violence is very easy in the abstract, when it's just a little puff of smoke. Violence is very hard in the moment, in the eye contact. And it is in that eye contact, in that intimacy of that conversation, that we see the gun in the room for what it is, and other people will see the gun in the room for what it is. And that doesn't have anything to do with 1776, or Iceland, or Ireland, or any of those things. It has to do with a naked human contact of saying, please do not initiate the force that you want against me. You want to solve social problems? Fantastic. Take to the airwaves, write blogs, write books, convince people with the power of your reason and the force of your evidence and the compulsion of your speaking. But we cannot continue to call ourselves a civilized species if we cast aside reason for the sake of violence. And everybody who advocates state solutions, and if there's ever a contradiction in terms, that would be it. Those who advocate state solutions need to eyeball their victims and say, yeah, I think you should be caged or shot if you disagree with me. And that's a hard thing to do. In my experience, almost everyone will back down from the statist position when they're eyeball to eyeball with somebody calling them out on the violence that they're pretending not to see. It's an incredibly powerful thing to do. It's a terrifying thing to do, where you depends. If you don't already have it. But it's a very powerful thing to do because it brings the reality of state power into people's minds, which is really only unconscious for most people, but that's what propaganda is designed to do, is to keep it unconscious, to keep it clouded, to keep it shrouded in myth and metaphor, and the collective will, and the social good, and the voting public, and the hail to the chief, and all that nonsense, right? But the naked politics of power is eye contact. It is, are you willing to use force against me to get your way? I would never use force against you because of my ideals. Will you return to me the same basic civilized human respect of putting down the gun so we can all finally just talk and reason our way into the future? Thank you so much for your time.